And we're live. Hello, crafters, and welcome to this Crafts with Us session. I'm Michelle Brown, Creative Director from Picture to Page and Beyond, which is our paper crafts, scrapbooking, mixed media art, art journaling, card making, and all sorts of crafts community. So welcome to this session. Hopefully you'll be able to find us and we will get started really soon. So today we're looking at simple bookmaking. Now, the reason that I wanted to look at that today is because I've seen a few different groups on Facebook, and as we know, we've been a little short-tempered, perhaps, with some people online, and so many people were saying, how do I make my own journal? Now, really, to make a journal or a book, it is really quite simple, and so many people seem quite overwhelmed by it. So I wanted to run you through today just one way of how to make a book. Now, of course, if we look at what makes a book, it really is just a couple of pages folded over. There's lots of different ways that you can make a book. And there's no reason for you to be too scared by it either, because what we find is that once you start making your own books, then in a way you've given yourself permission to use them. I hear so many stories of people who buy art journals and expensive craft products who then don't want to use them because they're afraid of ruining them. But what I can guarantee you is if you've bought something and you don't use it, when you go around to use it, especially if it's a paint or a medium, then if it dries up, then you have wasted it. So you haven't wasted it by using it badly, you've actually wasted it by not using it at all. So you've really got to make sure that you do get out all the stuff that you buy and use it. So with that in mind, today we're going to make a really simple book. Now we will go through a list of materials. Now hopefully these are things you've got around the home, and if not, then be creative. Find something else that you can use. We're going to talk about lots of different options, and there's different ways of bringing these together to make a book and then to use it however you want to, whether it's an art journal, whether it becomes a memory book or a memory file, or just something that the kids can make up their own stories in. There was actually a lady on the radio this week, an author, who talked about making her own books before she got started writing her own stories. And that when she goes into schools to talk about writing, she takes one of her early books with her to really reinforce to the kids how easy it is to make your own books and then write your own stories one day as well. So let's get started. Okay, so here's some of the materials I've got, and here are some of the books that I've bound using this simple technique that we'll run through today. So what I've asked you to gather is some pages. Now we're doing what's commonly called a junk journal, but again it's just using ephemera or sheets of paper that we're going to fold and turn into a book. So let me get these out of the way. So what I've got here is a handful of papers. They're about A4 size. So here I've got a lovely brown sheet from Paper Source. I've got an old magazine page. I've got something that was printed, so it's printed and a bit shiny on one side but plain on the other. I've got a back cover of something from a music book, a plain sheet of paper, another piece of text, a piece of watercolour paper. So if you have a sheet of or pad of watercolour paper, you could make your journal just from that. And of course a good old piece of Melways. And they're what's going to become our pages. Because if we think about what makes a book, what we're looking is taking more than one page and then finding a way of securing it together. Now the things that I'm going to use, or you could use to bind the book, we could just use string, we could use cotton. If it's thin cotton, I'd suggest you probably use 2 strands, or I'm using some wax thread, which is available at the Mixed Media Art store. So this is a bookbinding thread, but again, if you don't have it, don't worry and let that stop you. You can use some string or some cotton as well. So firstly, while we're waiting for everyone to pop on, let me show you some of the books that I've done using this technique. So firstly, we've got a little pocket-sized journal. This cover is an Elaine Hull die, but what it allows you to do is create sections, and the thing that I love about this book is that I can remove the sections and then free to create in it. So this is one that I've made using 3 holes, which is the same technique we'll use today. Now with these, again, all sorts of different ephemera, an old timetable, being able to open it up so that you can print straight on it, some collage, different bits and pieces. Other things that I've made that I've gone and just stuck in, bits and pieces that I've got, some good old collections, chipboard there, and some non-English writing, some stickers from Aldi. So you can make this. So this has got quite a few pages in it. The book we're making today won't have quite that many. So there's a small one. For a while we're making a whole heap of letter journals. So this is 4 inches by 8 inches or 7.5. The great thing about this is it will fit into a DL envelope, and it's a great way of creating a book and then sharing it with your friends. So again, can you see that? That's being bound with the 3-hole binding that we'll be doing today. What else have I got? I've got similar to the size we'll be doing today, and this has actually 3 sections in it. So today we'll just be looking at how to make one of these, but what we can then do is step it up, and we do a class here at Mixed Media Art where we can actually then bind 3 of those segments together to create a really nice sized book. We can also then make that even bigger. So I started off here with A3 size paper, giving me an A4 size book, and again binding it and then using it as an art journal using paint, using gel prints, a bit of journaling, some stamping, and then really just giving me the freedom to play, because I knew that if I didn't like it, I could easily tear out the page and start again as well. So you can also see here I've got a little bit of foiling in there, I think like a little bit of bling. Okay, and then finally the last one I want to show you is this junk journal. Now again, these are on the Mixed Media Art website, they're ScrapFX, and they've got a fantastic kit that includes all the bits and pieces you need as well as instructions. So this is actually, I've put it together with a 5-hole binding, and this has then allowed me to put in the piece of Melways and paint over it, do some collage with the ScrapFX rice papers, put in a transparency, so it doesn't have to be paper. You can use transparency, or you can use really whatever you've got. Some more stamping, some blacking out the background with gesso, collage. Now this page is being tipped in as well, so if we have time and I remember, I'll talk to you about how we tip in books as well. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. So if you're there, certainly pop into the comments. I can see Pam, I can see Robert, I can see Wendy, and I can see Libby, and Beatrix found us. Excellent. I'm glad. Sometimes these channels can be a little bit tricky. So this is some of the collaboration that I did with my niece at the Bendigo show. And here we've got a tag. So I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so if you're going to play along, get your materials ready. And if not, then watch and enjoy, and you can do it at home later. So now we've got all these pieces of paper. So like I said, when we talk about what makes a book, really it's a series of pages folded and joined together. There are ways of binding single sheets, but that's a little bit more complex and we won't be doing that today. So what we want to do first is fold all of these in half. So you could score them if you want, but I'm not going to be too precious because it's, like I said, what we call a junk journal or an ephemera journal. There's really no reason to be too accurate. Part of the charm of these books is that all the pages are different. They have a slightly different texture. They've all got a slightly different shape. So really no rules, only guidelines and things that I've learnt along the way. So sometimes these older book pages can be quite fibrous. So you might want to consider just if they're, what kind of medium you're going to put over. If you want to do a lot of paint, then you need to consider something perhaps a little bit thicker. Isn't this a fantastic one? Any old pages? Now I know some of you are a little bit apprehensive about using pages from books, but the way I like to think of it is that we're upcycling these. We're not ruining them. These are books that have passed their lives that we're heading for the tip anyway, and we're giving them a new life. Okay. Oops. Be very careful moving the table. Okay, now I've got my sheets. So the next thing I'm going to do is insert them together. So thinking a little bit about the order, but probably not too much. Now this is a really nice big one. I'm wondering if I should use that for the cover. So what I might actually do is fold that the other way and set that one aside, and we might use that in the cover. So what we want to do is create a nest of these pages. Now if they're different sizes, that's okay. We can put them all to one side, or we could sort of center them a little bit. Again, it really doesn't matter, and particularly if you're just using it to put your ephemera or kids' drawings in. Okay, now I probably don't want that as the middle one. I might use that one for the middle one. So there we go. So that gives me a bit of an idea of what the book might look like. Bringing back this one as the cover. Okay, so that covers it neatly. What you'll find, depending on your thicknesses of paper, as you tuck them in together, they will start sticking out here a little bit. So there's a couple of things you can do. In real life bookbinding land, they actually would overprint that and then come and trim it off so it's all flat. But here, I don't mind it hanging over, and because we can see the different sizes, we can see them sitting in different places. So if you're looking for something that's really neat, perhaps look at trimming that off, but again, perhaps wait till it's bound. So we've got that. Now, if you had any tags on hand, so I've got a large Art by Marlene tag that I might bind in, but I've also got a smaller tag as well. So I'm going to sit this one aside for now and show you later how to tip that in, and I'll sit it there so I remember. So, okay, I want to put this tag in, but maybe I don't have to fold it in half. Maybe I'll just fold it like that. So it will still fit in, but it will stick out a little bit. So where would I like to tack the tag? I might just tuck it in there. Now the challenge, of course, is how do we hold it there? Okay, I think that'll be right. Again, if it comes apart, we can just always bind it again. Okay, so how's everyone going? We've now got our pages, we've got them folded in half, and we're just considering a little bit about their order, but not too much. Because at this moment, we're not designing it, we're just making a book. We're keeping it nice and simple. So just having a look through, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is called a 3-hold pamphlet stitch. So what we're going to do is grab our ruler, and what we want to do, not a lot of measuring, so don't panic. What we can do is, look, if we've got something a bit uneven, see if I measure it here, this comes to about 23.5, but that's going to be too tricky. So what I'm going to do is center up that 24, then I'll mark a midpoint, which I'll know is 12, and then I want to mark bits either side. So usually we want to come in sort of about a thumb, so I might come into about the 3 centimetre mark there, and about the 21 centimetre mark there. So again, if we were going to do 5 holes, we'd put some extra dots on, but today we're just going to do 3. So we're marking it in the centre, and then coming in about an inch, 3 centimetres, and about an inch from the top. So again, no rules, but what we want to have it is far enough in so that it still holds the end securely, but also so that we're not, so that it will hold it nicely. Okay, so now you need to grab your pokey tool. Now, if you've done any bookbinding before or trying to get bits out of dies, an awl is a really good one to use. You can, of course, use a sturdy needle or, again, whatever else you've got around the home. If you've got a crocodile, you could also punch the holes in. So if you've got a crocodile, particularly one with a long neck. Now, the challenge is, and what I didn't think of doing, is grabbing, oh, this might work, something that's like a little bulldog clip, just to help you hold the pages together. Particularly as I know I've got that tag in there and I really don't want it to move once I start punching the holes. So what I will do is I've got a little cutting mat, because we don't want to put it through our fingers and we don't want to put it through the table. So hold it here. Now can you see the dot in the middle? Now the challenge is we want to go right through all the levels at once. We want to hold it together. So we gently push it through. And again, this is pretty robust. So if it ends up a little bit off center, that's fine. So we've got one hole there. We then want to hold it firm and repeat it there. So we're going to be really careful with your fingers, pushing that all the way through there. And again, doing the same, watching out your fingers. So we really don't want to get blood all over our new book, pushing it all the way through. Okay. So now we've got our pages, we've folded them in half. We've now marked a hole and punched a hole in the centre and at either end. Now we want to put something to bind it with. So like I said, we could use string or twine, we could use cotton. What I'm going to use is actually bookbinding thread, wax thread. So the challenge, of course, is how much do you need? Now what we've found is that we need enough that's 3 times the length of the spine. So we want to go 1, 2, 3. Okay. Because of course we don't like to waste anything, but also if it's not long enough, then we're not going to be able to do what we need to do. So the next decision we need to make is how you'd like your book to look finished. So if you would like to have the strings hanging out so you can then add beads to them, we want to start from the outside working in. Or if we want a nice neat finish with the ends tucked inside the book, then we want to start from the inside out. So I'm going to do a nice neat finish, so I'm going to start here from the inside out. Okay, now if you've got upholstery needles, you can use those. I have some and I don't know where they are. So what we're going to do is start through the middle hole, make sure that's all lined up, realigning it through. Now the great thing about the wax thread is that it does go through pretty easily. So what we're going to do is pull that through and pull that to about there. So from the inside through the middle hole and then coming out that hole. Okay, what we're going to do next, still hold the page together, turn it over. Now I'm coming this way and we want to go from the outside in. Now because we've punched these holes from the inside out, what we might find is that we've got a little bit of debris there. So we might just need to very carefully, again watching our fingers, push it through the other way. Check that the holes are lined up. So now that we've gone through the middle hole, we're getting our next piece and going from the outside in. And then pulling it, now we don't want it too tight, but of course we don't want it too loose either. So let's just pull it about that tight for now. So turn it back onto the inside. Now what we're going to do is go from that end all the way to the other end. So again, now that we've moved the pages around, we might just need to check our hole. That's why these awls are really handy tools, but they are incredibly sharp, so please be very careful. Okay, and pulling it through. Now our last step in our 3-hole pamphlet binding is to put it back into this middle hole. Now again, the challenge is just opening that hole up enough so that we can get through, and we don't want to split the thread that's already there because we want to be able to adjust it. So just carefully pushing it back through. This is much easier with a needle, and I really wish I knew where mine were. But upholstery needles are great because they've got a really big eye that takes the thick thread, and also they're quite blunt, so they don't hurt quite as much. If you're going to do Copic stitching or anything like that, they're great to have. Okay, so pulling that back through. There we go, and pulling that again tight. So we can take the clip off because we're nearly there. So what we're going to do now is adjust it. So firstly, if you're worried that these aren't the same, we're probably going to cut these short. But if you want to even them up, what we need to do is go back and figure out which is the long piece. So pulling this one, pulling that in so it evens up, and then we're just going to work it through. So coming out and pulling it through the top hole, pulling it back through the other hole, and then pulling it through there. So what you can then do is just adjust it so that it's nice and tight. Oh, I'm a bit tongue-tied today. So you can sort of see how firm that's sitting. Okay, now we're just going to tie it off. So we can see here, I like putting the main piece straight through the middle, so it helps secure it. Then we're doing a simple reef knot, right over left, left over right. Now, again, one of my little things that I like to do, completely up to you, you can cut it off there. But I'm always worried that when I cut things too tight that they might come undone. So what we're going to do now is just gently, I should say, tuck that through and do the same with the other side. And then when I'm ready to seal that, I could put a little bit of washi tape or masking tape over it, and that will just help keep it firm. So I can now trim those ends off. Hopefully you have enough that gets you there. Okay, and so just gently we can bring it back. And there we have a very simple book. Now if you're worried that it's not folding too flat, what we can do is put it under something heavy, or if you're lucky enough to have a book press like I am, we can leave it in the book press overnight. And there we have our book ready to go. Now another reason why I really love this 3-hole pamphlet stitch is that when you open the book up, it then allows it to sit flat. So traditionally, if we were just to staple a couple of bits together, we know that if we had just stapled there, that it wouldn't lie as flat. By using this pamphlet stitch on the seam. Now, of course, if you have a sewing machine and you would like to run it through that, that's just as easy for you to do as well. You can certainly do that. So what we can see here, that it's bound at a nice pressure, so it's not too tight that the pages are tearing when I open it up. Now we can see here, oh, our tag stayed in place. I did mean to check that. So that's good. It shows that we had it nice and tight. Then we come to the middle. You can see we're a little bit off there. But again, if we tape that with some washi tape or masking tape, I've got a little bit of washi tape here. So the good thing about washi tape being it's a paper tape that's tearable, and because it's paper, you can put paint over it as well. So we can easily, if we pull it gently, there we go, just use that to tape that up. Now we can either paint over it if we don't want to include that in our design, or we could even build that into part of our design as well. So that just helps hide that, and then also make sure that those ends don't come undone as well. So again, depending if you want to show that as a feature, you can leave it there, or else you can block that off as well. Okay, so then we've got our other sides of our pages. We've got the other half of the tag. Okay, fantastic. I'm really pleased with that. I think maybe that was the front. Anyway, not to worry. Now, one of the things I was also going to show you is how to tip in a single sheet. Now, if you've got something like a tag, or if you wanted to put in like a card front, and so there's a couple of ways of doing it. If we find where we like to put it, so maybe here on this plain sheet. Now we can do it a couple of ways. We could either use double-sided tape and just put a thin line along one side and sit it in. Now that will look okay. So for example, when I've done that here with this transparency, so that sits in really well, but the idea is that we probably wouldn't then open that page, because you can see that doesn't sit quite as flat because of the way that we've stuck it in with the tape. So we could do that, or actually, I think I've got another example. The card that I made the other day on Mixed Media Art, I've then tipped that in with washi tape, and that then allows it to be able to be folded, and then we can just continue to decorate that, and again paint over that as well. So again, if we wanted to do that with this tape, we could do it either way. So perhaps I might do it with the washi tape. So again, decide where we might want it. It doesn't have to be in the middle. I know, real rebel, not sticking the tag in the middle. And then just running it down with a piece of washi tape. Okay. Now, have we got any questions? I can see Linda's popped on. So thanks, Linda. I think it's looking good. And we've got Wendy there, it's looking good. So, and we've got Sandra as well. Excellent. Thanks for joining us. I know Sandra's done a few of our classes here at Mixed Media Art Studios. So if you have any questions, of course, pop them in the comments below. I hope that's given you some ideas how to make some really simple books. So when you're thinking about, you know, perhaps starting an art journal and being a bit nervous or worried about how you're going to go, I hope this gives you some inspiration to grab something pointy, grab some pages and fold them in half, a little bit of string, and then you'll be ready to go. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us in this Crafts With Us session today. I hope you've had a chance to pull out some ephemera pages, or like I said, they could be watercolour pages, they could be something from another book that you've been wanting to repurpose, and bind them together, fold them in half or tip them in, and then you'll have something that really gets you started. So Carmel's just asked if I'll go through the threading again. So let me go through it again. So I've got something else that I can use. Okay, so we've got our folded in half. Okay, so we're going to mark, this is 3-hole binding. So if you're doing 5-hole, it's a little bit more complex. I can put the link to the Mixed Media Art website that has the full 5-hole binding in it. So again, we've got our 3 holes. Okay, so we want our string. I've got this really cool purple string. It's going to be 3 times the length of the spine. Okay, and then if we want dangly bits on the outside, we go from the outside, or if we want it neat, we start from the inside. So let's do a dangly bits. So like I said, carefully, hole outside in. Bit tricky with a string without a needle. So while I'm doing this, Linda's also asked, do we paint directly into a journal? I do both. There's been times where I have created a journal and painted straight into it. Other times I've created pages and then I've put them together as well. So I just realised that I was showing you something and I haven't got it down on the camera. So, don't you love this technology? Another example. So, sorry Tammy, I realise you can't see. Okay, so let's have another go. So, okay, so we've got our 3 holes. We've gone from the outside in. We pull it to there. Then we go from the inside out. Pull that tight. Then on the other side, we go all the way to the hole at the other end. And then come back to the middle, and again sometimes it needs just a little bit of extra jiggling. Put that back through there. So there we go. So we can then pull it tight, easy with one piece. So we thread middle, out, end, back through the middle and tie it off. Or if we want our ties in the middle, we start at the inside, middle, top, far end, back through the middle. Excellent. Okay, thanks Jenny, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Okay, so I'm going to finish up there. That gives us about half an hour for our tutorial. So it really does show you that once you've got all your materials together, it's really not that complex to get all the bits and pieces together. So yes, if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments. Of course, share our crafty love. We'd love to get you a like, a thumbs up, or a heart, and generally just sharing our crafty love. From Picture to Page and Beyond, we will be bringing you a whole heap of techniques, some for crafters, so with things that you've already got, but we're also doing a series for crafting at home with kids as well. So pop onto our YouTube channel, search From Picture to Page, and of course, any other information, pop over to our website, from picture to page and beyond.com.au. So if there's nothing else, thank you all so much for joining us today, and of course, I hope you have a crafty day. Thanks for watching.